Hello, Westside. It's good to be with you whenever you are watching this. I'm excited about being with you finally again this next Sunday. I was absent last Sunday and I missed it a lot, missed being with you, and so I'm looking forward to the chance to be with you this coming Sunday. Get to chat about the sermon, some of the ideas that I'm going to present here. The title of the sermon is What's in a Name? Continuing along our Tales of Transformation series here at Westside, and I'm excited about bringing a message to you. I wanted to begin by showing you something. If you came over to our house for some meal or lunch or dinner or something like that, and you opened up our cabinet where we keep all of our cups, you might see this glass. And this glass probably wouldn't mean much to you. You might pick it up and put some milk or water or grape juice or whatever you're drinking in it and wonder, why do the Metcalfs have this glass in their cupboard? It looks just kind of a little bit plain. It doesn't have a matching set. It's just by itself. And it has this rather sharp chip right here. I don't know if you can see that. If you grab it the wrong way, it's a bit jagged. It has this chip in it. Might not look like much to you. You might say, hey, how about we go to IKEA together and maybe it's time to upgrade some of your glasses. And I would tell you that this glass actually means a lot to me. It's a very significant and very valuable glass to me. There used to be more of them. We used to have a set, but as life happens, especially with kids, they've broken along the way, and so this is the last one. The last of a set of glasses that belonged to my grandmother, who passed away in the year 2000, almost 20 years ago. Years after she passed away, my mom gave us the set of glasses. My grandmother was my dad's mom, but my mom is the keeper of glasses in our house, so she gave us these glasses, and they're significant to me. This glass is significant to me. In part because I realized my grandmother, whose name was Mary, held this glass. And that's fun to think about. She held it, she drank from it, went through her dishwasher, went through her sink. It was a part of her life, and I like that. This glass is also significant to me in regards to my grandmother because its story reminds me of her a little bit. It's got this chip in it, and she had she was somebody who had a bit of a chip in her life. She was not perfect. She had some difficulties in life, and yet to those who knew her, like me and my family, and certainly my dad and aunts and uncles, she's precious, just like this cup is to me. My grandmother was precious to those who know her, which is such a great reminder whenever we find people who look rather plain or have a chip in them, maybe even a dangerous chip in them. It's good for us to remember that this is a person of significance to somebody. Somebody loves them. Their life is valued to somebody around them. And nobody knows them, of course, better than God. Nobody cherishes them more than God does. So it's a good reminder. My grandmother had a bit of a chip about her. Sometimes the chips, and I think the chip that she had, are actually signs of transformation, evidence, stories of a life that has wrestled and dealt with God. Sometimes the chips that we have are evidence of God's presence in our life. Grandmother and God didn't always get along, and I love that about her. Stories in our house about her relationship with God and her relationship with the church, which might be two different things, were stories that I heard when growing up. Grandmother was a preacher's wife, married to my granddad, who was a preacher, and that's not always the easiest job, being married to a preacher's wife, especially where they lived, and especially during those times. The church didn't always treat my granddad well, and my grandmother was caught up in the midst of it all. She had a hard life. You get the idea. Her name was Mary Metcalf, Mary Cobalt before Metcalf. Chipped, but transformed, sometimes transformation leaves us chipped. My grandmother reminds me of a friend of sorts of mine who I have, who's also lived a bit of a rough life, a tough life. His transformation was difficult. He's one of these people that's actually had a name change that's associated with his transformation. He's changed his name as a witness, as evidence to the transformation that he's gone through because of his life's trajectory, because of where life has taken him, because of what God has done in his life, frankly. He's felt the need to actually change his name. His name now is Israel, but it wasn't always so. His name used to be Jacob. You might know him. You might have heard his story. His name was once Jacob. His name now is Israel. Jacob is Isaac's son. Isaac is the son called Laughter. Isaac is this kind of legendary figure in Scripture, kind of this portrayal of providence, embodied providence. Isaac is the son of Abraham and Sarah, the one that they yearned for and hoped for and desired for so many years. Isaac kind of represents God's providence. I think being Isaac's son would be a tough gig. I think being Isaac's son would be difficult. There's kind of a lot to live up to there. I hadn't really thought about this before. But I think it would be difficult to say, yeah, my dad's name is Laughter. He represents God's goodness and God's providence. There's a little bit of pressure that goes along with that. Plus, Jacob had an older brother named Esau, and as you probably know, that didn't always go so well for him. And frankly, Jacob didn't always make the best choices. It's a lot of pressure, and he didn't seem to handle the pressure all that well. There are indeed many not so great stories about Jacob out there. And yet, once we get under his roughness, his shrewdness, there is this desire that Jacob has, this tenacity within him to never let God go. Hence, his name change. His transformation comes with a name change and also comes with a cost. You likely know the story of when his name change happens. I'm going to read it to you now because it's one of my favorite stories in Scripture. This is from Genesis chapter 32. We'll pick it up in verse 24 will suit us with the best place to pick it up. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go until you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he replied. The man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and humans, and you have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" And then he blessed him right there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." And then Jacob limps away in the story. I have to say that if I were one of the editors of the book of Genesis, which I often wish I would have been, oh, no, not really. I don't really want that job. I would have asked for a tad more details here in this story. Let's punch it up a little bit. Let's get down in this. Jacob wrestles with God all night long. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of wishing for another detail or two and just exactly how that wrestling match went. Miles and I still wrestle sometimes, although that's becoming less enjoyable for me the larger he gets and the stronger he gets. He's getting big, and wrestling Miles is hard, even for like 20 or 30 minutes, let alone all night long. This doesn't seem like a simple wrestling match in Genesis 32 either. It doesn't seem like a father and son just kind of wrestling a little bit on the couch to see who gets the remote to pick the next TV show or whatever the scenario might be. This seems like a rather violent sort of wrestling episode. This is real. This is rugged. Sweat, dirt, mud, blood, teeth, kicking, elbows, groans and pains, exhaustion. This is a difficult, vivid portrayal of the scene, of the wrestling scene. As many of you know, Frederick Buechner is one of my favorite Christian authors, and he wrote this kind of meditation in a book called Son of Laughter, which is about Jacob, on what this wrestling match would have been like. So this is an excerpt from that book. I'm going to sanitize it a little bit. This is the PG version. If you want an unbeeped version, you can let me know and I'll send it to you. So as we go on the fly, I'm going to kind of clean up a little bit of the language, because what Frederick Buechner is doing when he writes this out is trying to get at the grittiness of the story of Jacob wrestling with God. Out of the dark, someone leaped at me with such great force that it knocked me onto my back. It was a man. I could not see his face. His naked shoulder was pressed hard against my jaw, so hard I thought he would break it. His flesh was chill and wet with the river. He was the god of the river. My bulls had hurt him. My flocks had hurt him. My children had hurt him. He would not let me cross the river without a battle. I got my elbow into the pit of his throat. I forced him off. I threw him over onto his back. His breath was hot in my face as I straddled him. My breath came in gasps. Quick as a serpent, he twisted loose, and I was caught between his thighs. The grip was so tight I couldn't move. He had both hands pressed to my cheek. He was pushing my face into the mud, grunting with the effort. Then he got me on my belly with his knee in the small of my back. He was tugging my head up towards him, breaking my neck. He is not the god of the river. This is Esau. He has slain all my sons. He has forded the river to slay me. Just as my neck was about to snap, I butted my head upward with the last of my strength and caught him square. For an instant, his grip loosened and I was free. Over and over, we rolled together into the reeds at the water's edge. We struggled in each other's arms. He was on top, then I was on top. I knew that these were not Esau's arms. This is not Esau. I did not know who it was. I did not know who I was. I knew only my terror, and that it was dark as death. I knew only what the stranger wanted was my life. For the rest of the night, we battled in the reeds, with the Jabbok roaring down through the gorge above us. Each time I thought I was lost, I escaped somehow. There were moments when we lay exhausted in each other's arms. There were moments when I seemed to be prevailing. It was as if he was letting me prevail. Then he was at me with new fury, but he did not prevail. For hours it went on that way. Our bodies were slippery with mud. We were panting like beasts. We could not see each other. We spoke no words. I did not know why we were fighting. It was like fighting in a dream. He outweighed me. He outwrestled me, but he did not overpower me. He did not overpower me until the moment came to overpower me. When the moment came, I knew that he could have made it come whenever he wanted. I knew that all through the night he had been waiting for that moment. He had his knee under my hip. The rest of his weight was on top of my hip. Then, as the moment came, he gave a fierce downward thrust, and I felt a fierce pain. It was less a pain I felt than a pain I saw. I saw it as light. I saw the pain as a dazzling bird shape of light. The pain's beak impaled me with light. It blinded me with the light of its wings. I knew I was crippled and done for. I could do nothing but cling now. I clung for dear life. I clung for dear death. My arms trussed him. My legs locked him. For the first time he spoke. He said, "Let me go." The words were more breath than sound. They scalded my neck where his mouth was touching. He said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." Only then did I see it, the first faint shudder of light behind the farthest hill. I said, "I will not let you go." I would not let him go for fear that the day would take him as the dark had given him. It was my life I clung to. My enemy was my life. My life was my enemy. I said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Even if his blessing meant death, I wanted it more than life. Bless me, I said. I will not let you go until I bless me. He said, "Who are you?" There was mud in his eyes, in my eyes, my ears, and my nostrils, and my hair. My name tasted of mud when I spoke it. "Jacob," I said. "My name is Jacob." "It is Jacob no longer," he said. "Now you are Israel. You have wrestled with God and men. You have prevailed." That is the meaning of the name Israel. I was no longer Jacob. I was no longer myself. Israel was who I was. The stranger had said it. I tried to say it the way he had said it. Yes, Rahel. I tried to say my new name. I was the new self that I was. I could not see him. He was too close for me to see. I could see only the curve of his shoulders above me. I saw the first glimmer of dawn on his shoulders, like a wound. I said, "What is your name?" I could only whisper it. "Why do you ask me my name?" We were both of us whispering. He did not wait for my answer. He blessed me as I asked him to. I do not remember the words of his blessing, or even if there were words. I remember the blessing of his arms holding me, and the blessings of his arms letting me go. I remember his blessing the black shape of him against the rose-colored sky. I remembered his blessing the one glimpse I had of his face. It was more terrible than the face of dark or of pain or of terror. It was the face of light. No words can tell of it. Silence cannot tell of it. Sometimes I cannot believe that I saw it, and I lived, but that I only dreamed I saw it. Sometimes I believe I saw it, and that I only dream that I live. It's very Frederick Buechner-like. Those of you who have enjoyed Buechner know what I'm talking about. Very vivid, and also what in the world are you talking about? But I love his description of the wrestling match, the vivid portrayal of what it would be like to wrestle with God all night long, to be given this new name, Israel, the one who has wrestled with God, the one who has wrestled with humans and lived. Israel, once more, know it. This is God. I prevailed. I overcame with God. Then there's the limp. God injures his hip. We are led to believe that this injury does not go away. The limp, I noticed upon reading this story again, is not necessarily a bad thing. The text does not say, so Jacob limped and was super bummed about it, and he hired Josh Stumpus' lawyer, and he sued the divine so that he would not limp any longer. In fact, it could be, occurs to me, could be that he's grateful for the limp. It reminds him of his struggle. Could be that it reminds him of his strength to overcome and endure. It's a scar that is a testament of devotion. The limp is a scar that is evidence of his transformation, his own proof. Every morning, the pain in his hip reminds him of his struggle. He has prevailed over God. He has prevailed over humans. Thank God for that limp. Transformation might leave us limping. Transformation might leave us cracked, chipped. Transformation might leave us a little rougher than we were before, and we might thank God for that. We might be singing a broken hallelujah, walking a slow walk, and so grateful for it. It's interesting. The hospital system where I get to work and be a resident, honestly, it feels like a missionary field that I'm going into, sent by you. I don't mean that in an overly dramatic way. What I mean is, I never feel disconnected or separated from you, the body of Westside, my faith community. As I am in that place, I often think of you and imagine you and draw on your strength when I'm in that place. Many of the patients that I get to work with and interact with will actually say that they feel like they're meeting God in their pain. They're meeting God in their difficulty. They often don't say this at first. At first, it's a little bit more on the why me, why is this happening to me sort of thing, which I think are fair and wonderful and great questions to ask. Don't let anybody ever tell you not so. It's okay to ask those questions. They're fair game. If they tell you that, have them come talk to me or any other chaplain, and we'll set them straight. But over time, they begin to actually see God at work in their wounds, see God sometimes even evidenced in their difficulty. The evidence of miracles in their life are tubes keeping them alive, are prosthetics, are pills, medication, healing hands of doctors, nurses. Evidence of God in their lives is sometimes even the pain that they feel, which is proof of their life. And sometimes the pain that they feel is proof that they are getting better, not always. The tough people, the tough ones, don't give up. They don't let God go, no matter what. Even if they are chipped, even if they walk with a limp. Reminds me of my grandmother. Reminds me of Jacob turned to Israel. Reminds me of stories I know of you, Westside, and what so many of you have gone through. 2020 has been a difficult year as we continue to face the pandemic and all that means for so many of us as we face an incredibly contentious and difficult election, which many of us, myself included, are incredibly passionate about and heartbroken over and yearning for. As we face so many difficulties in our lives, let us never sway to believe that transformation means removal of those things. Sometimes transformation means we live through the pain and we experience it. We walk with a limp and we're grateful for it. We drink out of chipped cups and we're grateful for them. For the one who holds them together is the one who blesses us and changes our name. It's been so good to be with you. I love you all so much. Can't wait to chat more with you soon. And until then, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you and give you peace.